I go start streaming.
Can you hit my camera so I can make sure it's... Remember when you... No, hit the 2 so we can see how it looks. Maybe point it up, because remember you knocked it.
I did.
And down more. Yeah, that's good.
Is that good?
That's good. What do you think?
Yeah.
Cool.
That's perfectly framed. They call it a third. I did a little
cool
YouTube thing on this. Right, so that's there. Okay, so that's there.
Wow.
We could be live already, and I don't know. I think we are. I think when I did start streaming, it already came out. So
let's just do it.
I hope so. I guess we'll be testing it out, and we'll be seeing. Well, cheers. I've had a few problems. I got to say, you were totally cool on your end.
Try.
I was freaking out. Sorry to look at the screen, but okay. So this is whoops. Okay. So now it's not switching between cameras. Okay. Yes, it is, but it's taking a little bit
Just
more.
a little lagged. Cool.
There's a little bit of lag there, or is that was okay. So that's I think that's because basically we don't see it in real time.
Right.
If you know what I'm saying. Anyway, so I've written a few things down here. So the first thing, there's a lot of exciting stuff actually here to talk about, but the thing that I'm most excited about actually is the Marshall endorsement. So tell us how that kind of came about.
So I've been friends with Frank Sidoris from Slash for we were kids when I met him. And I wanted to buy one of his heads, and I think he sold it to like a guitar shop or something. He was like, you know what, I can contact you with Joel at Marshall.
Right.
So he just linked us up, and Joel's been great. And it was just that. It was that easy. And then I've just been talking to Joel about it, and they're on their way. So it'll be cool.
Yeah, Joel's a great guy.
The greatest guy ever.
Yeah.
He was so easy to talk to and responded fast. And I couldn't say enough good things about both of them, honestly.
And so did you know that Did you know that Slash was almost a lick library guy?
No. Tell me about that.
Right, so really, really interesting story. Before he did his Marshall amp, he actually was going to do an amp with the guys from Ashdown.
Wow.
Who were bass people.
Okay.
And they just basically gave us his number.
Okay.
And the really weird thing about it was I'd like left a message with, I think it was the ex-Guns N' Roses manager, whose name I can't remember right now. Anyway, so I was in Vegas. You know me, I'm kind of in and out depending on immigration and what have you. And so I'd actually like phoned up and said, hey, this is Stuart Ball, blah, blah, blah. I left a message, not expecting to hear anything back. Went back to Europe, to England for 5 weeks. Come out of the airport, first thing I do is turn on my US phone. It's the Slash guy. It's like I didn't even bother calling him back because I didn't know.
Yeah.
So basically, called back, left another message. Really sorry, I've been away. And anyway, long story short, we ended up meeting. We went and had lunch at a place called the Soliluna.
Okay.
I think maybe the first time we went to a hotel, and then we went to this Soliluna and met Slash, really, really nice guy. And then the next stage was we were going to get together and play in a hotel room in the Sportsman's Lodge.
Wow, that's
which
fun.
Is apparently where Guns N' Roses had all their end of tour parties and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And the really funny part about it was we booked this room. I can't remember the number of the room now. I should have took a picture, but anyway. And this manager was a little bit flaky, to be honest. Like,
the vibes were not there.
No, just like getting back to things. And anyway, long story short, Slash was supposed to be there at 3:00, right? At the hill, and it was like getting 3:05, 3:10, and he still wasn't there. And so I thought I'd better go out look for him. So I went out to the car park. It was the funniest thing. He was walking around the car park with his guitar case, like not knowing where to go. And I said, Slash. He went, oh, my manager never didn't tell me what room it was, right?
Oh my God.
Or whatever it was, whatever it was. He was just like walking around. He had this Aston Martin there, and he's like walking around the car park with his guitar case. I said, "Oh, come with me." So anyway, we went in, and we played together. I didn't get to do any solos, but I think he was so enjoying just.
I've heard he's the most mellow,
jamming,
easygoing guy.
And the thing is, the really anyway. So I had these little backing tracks that I'd made, like actually little drum machine things, and I played the rhythm, and he was like, got anything else? Got anything else? He was like so enthusiastic to
That's fun. I love that.
You know, and apparently, I don't know what happened, but he was telling me, I should say this, but he was telling me at the time, as we got talking more about jamming, that his wife, I don't know if it was still or at the time, he couldn't basically, he couldn't go out the door unless it was 25 grand or above.
Right.
And he's the sort of guy that wants to go down the local.
I think he just loves guitar.
Yeah.
He just loves playing guitar.
Yeah. And he don't care if me and you were playing down the road and he fancied playing. He'd just come down.
I've heard from multiple people like he's always playing.
Yeah.
On the bus, backstage, he's just always playing.
Yeah.
And which is the coolest thing ever. Honestly.
I think it's brilliant. I mean, I think I play a lot. I'm always, but that was so the funny thing. It was like, he couldn't go out of the house unless it was this certain amount of money, kind of thing. Yeah. Anyway, so we kept playing. Eventually, the manager turned up. We were about an hour in. Mm-hmm. And you know me, I like to mess with people's heads a little bit.
Yeah.
Can't help it. It's just a stupid Gemini thing. But so the manager sat down, and he's kind of like here, and Slash is kind of like here, and he's like, so Slash thinks this, and Slash thinks that, and Slash this, and I goes, he's sitting right there.
You're right.
Anyway, he eventually left, and Slash was like, he goes, oh, I'm really sorry
That's
about
hysterical. I love it.
He goes, I'm really sorry about that. And then the most weirdest thing of all time happened, right? Which was when we got finished with the whole thing. I wasn't allowed to film it, which I understood.
Yeah.
And
sure.
I was actually going to the airport straight after seeing it. And went outside and got talking to a guy who was actually from, is it SIR or SRI? The
SIR, the backline company.
Yeah.
We have one here.
He was outside getting a limo to the airport. I wasn't getting a limo, I was just getting a car. We got chatting. I just said, I was just inside doing this thing with Slash. He's like, and he told me the whole story about that amplifier.
Wow.
Do you know
the Appetite one?
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Nobody knows what that amp is exactly, right? And the
really?
No.
I know it was like, was it lost or something like that?
I'll tell you exactly what happened, right? Because
there's some wild story with that head, though.
But you couldn't make it up, could you? If you know what I'm saying in terms of like...
What I remember of it was a weird story with that.
Yeah, well, I know exactly what it was.
But tell me about it.
I'll tell you, but the thing is, what I'm saying is, like, I'm in there with Slash, I come outside to go to the airport, and the guy from SIR's there.
Yeah, what are the chances of that?
In LA, in the Pulp Fiction world, that's probably not that strange.
Sounds like, right.
But to me it was.
Right.
So I'm like, I want to know the story of this amplifier.
Right.
And he's like, I will tell you exactly what happened. So apparently, when they made the Appetite for Destruction album, right, they hired that amp, which to my ears sounds like Silver Jubilee, right, or an 800, somewhere in there, right?
Sure.
It's definitely not Super Lead or anything like that.
Right.
Anyway, they hired the amp to use for the album, and they didn't give it back.
Wow.
Right? They kept it.
Okay.
And so they kept it for quite some time. Mm-hmm. And then what happened was they went back to, is it SIR again?
SIR, yeah.
They went back to SIR to rehearse. And the guy who I was talking to, was the owner, had the book of who was in it. He was like, oh, this band who stole my amp.
Yeah.
Right back in. And so what he did was, apparently Slash had said to the tech, take the sticker off it, and whatever you do, don't put that amp up. And the tech did. Left the sticker on it and put it up for the rehearsal. So the guy who owned SIR went in there and went, thank you very much.
Right.
Took it back.
Wow.
And that's what he told me anyway.
I could see that happening.
So,
And then it just got lost in...
What, it went back into stock?
Exactly.
And if you had
hundreds of Marshalls.
If you had any sense, you probably took it home and... So anyway, so that's fantastic. So there's, like that endorsement thing. Now...
It's just fun. That's the company to play.
Yeah.
Like, it always has been. I think it always will be, honestly.
I tend to think
me, those are the amps.
I tend to think everything seems to come back to Marshall.
Well, everything to me is a modded Marshall when you break it down. You know what I mean? Like, everything comes from Marshall.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, yeah. I'm stoked about it. I think it'll be great.
No, I think it's absolutely brilliant. I'm really excited for you as well.
Thanks,
that
man.
you involved in that company.
Yeah.
And I mean, and to be honest with you, if you're playing rock and roll, it's like...
You cannot go wrong with those.
No. So anyway, I want to talk. There's loads of things I want to talk about here. So we're going to be here for some time. So you've kind of got like a sort of two-pronged attack on the music business in much. You do play for some big artists, which we're going to talk about in a second, but you also do some techie stuff for even bigger artists.
Yeah, production stuff. Yeah.
So what do you want to talk about the kind of Sebastian Bach thing first, or?
You shoot, man. Whatever.
So you were obviously, I don't know what, we haven't spoken for a while because I was
been gone, man.
I was trapped in a cabinet.
It's a pandemic,
for 2
dude.
years.
It's crazy.
So tell us about the Sebastian Bach thing, how that come about, and where you are with that.
Sebastian
right
was
now.
wild, man. I was literally just hanging out, and I got hit up from Chris Kale from Five Finger Death Punch, who I'm close friends with, telling me he was looking for a guitar player for some shows. I guess Brent couldn't do some shows.
Yeah. You know Andy James is in that band now.
He's one of my best friends.
Yeah.
Love that
really?
guy to death.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, he's a
He
Lick
is
Library
the
guy for years.
coolest. Yes, he is. He's the coolest dude. I'm glad he has that gig. He deserves it. That guy's such a hardworking guitar player and a monster guitar player.
He deserved that from the second he was born.
Absolutely.
But anyway, back to Sebastian.
And then I got he added me on Instagram and then sent me a message. And he was like, I'm going to call you tonight, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, huh. You know what I mean? Like, okay.
Yeah.
And then he called me and it was his voice. And I felt like Mark Wahlberg on Rockstar or something. Like, it was like, this is actually Sebastian Bach on the phone. Like, this is crazy. And then I went out to his house and rehearsed with him for a week. Him and Suzanne are great.
Right.
And then I did a show in Vegas. And then I was supposed to do some shows in Canada, but then Brent got loosened up and was able to do those.
Right.
So Brent's been with him ever since, but if you ever need someone, I'm on call.
That's the gig you're doing.
Yeah, so we're still super close, and I talk to him all the time.
Yeah. And you're also really good buddies with Darius from...
Dario, yeah.
Dario,
sorry. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Me and Dario are buddies. I've known him forever, too, man. It's
Yeah.
crazy how many guys come out of Vegas now. And it's
Yeah.
almost like the new LA. It's a trip. It's like all these guys I grew up with, and it's like they're all doing legit stuff. It's crazy.
Isn't the Steel Panther guy living here?
Yeah,
now?
I'm sure he does, yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't
they've
think-
been here forever because they used to be like a local thing.
Yeah,
Before they were worldwide, they were a local.
I've seen them play.
Yeah.
So
I love
many
those guys.
times.
They're
It's
great.
crazy.
Yeah.
But anyway, so tell us about the production stuff. I know I can't remember who it was originally. Shania Twain is.
That's who I work for now. Originally, my very first production gig was J-Lo.
That was it.
It was
Yeah.
J-Lo many years ago. It's just weird because we have so many residencies out here, and if I ever wanted to like make a buck when I wasn't touring or playing, it was like a no-brainer, right?
Right.
Like it's better than working at like Kinko's or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, that was my first gig, and I'm a PA for Shania. I love that crew so much.
Right.
They're all great. So yeah.
And so there's a lot of people that have done really well in the business. The one that comes to mind is Noel Gallagher. He actually went out on tour with the Inspiral, I think, Carpets. He was a tech for those guys on the road, and he basically took a lot of the stuff that he learned and brought it into the Oasis thing.
That's what's fun about it.
Yeah,
I'm
so-
on both sides of the curtain kind of a thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so my sort of question to you is like, what have been, first of all, how did you get that sort of work?
Okay.
And second of all, what from that have you managed to bring into your kind of, working with Sebastian and people like
Being
that?
structured for sure.
Right.
There's no room to not be structured with that
Right.
stuff.
So you can't be like strung out. Like,
No, exactly.
Come back in an hour.
Yeah, Joel, my production manager, is the coolest dude. It's what was your first question?
So how did you actually
Oh,
get
how did I
the
get
job?
that? It was weird, man. They started the residency and they asked a couple people for recommendations, and they all said me.
Right.
So I just got a call from them, and I was like, huh, okay, cool. And I just kind of fell into it. It's kind of weird how that kind of thing happened, but I just fell into it. And I've been with the show ever since it started, and I hope to be with them till the end.
Right.
It's been fun. Shania's great. That show's great. Definitely proud of it for sure. Corey Trickle, the guitar player, is incredible too.
Right.
That's Kevin Trickle's brother,
Right.
who owns the Hideout out here.
Yeah, he's got a studio. I
Yes,
think
he does,
I went there
yeah.
once.
Yeah, it's great. A gorgeous studio.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. Yeah, I just kind of fell into it. Like I just got recommended for it.
Right.
And I still am going to work. So
Now, this is a little bit. I don't even know if I can take the word, but if I ever met Shania Twain,
yeah.
one of the things I would want to bug her about is the one thing you can't bug her about. And you know what I'm about to say?
What's that?
Mutt Lange.
Yes. So
Because as a huge, I
Def Leppard
Def
fan.
Leppard fan, AC/DC, you know.
I worked for those guys for a while too. They were incredible.
Def Leppard.
Yep, they were incredible. Absolutely cool, chill dudes. I had a lot of cool combos with Phil,
Right.
and Vivian. They were the most down to earth guys because you wouldn't expect that.
No.
With a band like that, of that stature, but if you didn't know they were in Def Leppard, you wouldn't know they were.
You wouldn't know
they were
Def
the
Leppard.
coolest dudes.
But I don't even think they know they're in Def Leppard because if that makes it, what I'm trying to say is like they're just kids.
Really though,
when they started,
honestly,
you know.
And Phil's funny because they train every morning. They do like a whole workout thing.
Right.
And we were talking about, I think we were talking about kickboxing or fitness or something like that. And he was like, Brody, come here. And he had like this dummy thing, that
right, yeah.
Thing. Had like this dummy thing, and he took his foot and he put his foot up by the head on the dummy thing, and he goes, age is just a number, and he was like in a fighting stance, and I was just like, dude, this guy's so cool. Like, they were the coolest dudes though.
Yeah. So I've got a little kind of I don't know where I heard this.
It might be a Mutt thing
from the main. So anyway, you can't talk to Shania Twain about.
No.
Mutt Lange.
I mean, I guess I could, but
you could, but
I'd rather not.
You're not going to go there, which is such a shame because you're like, what did he do to the snare drum?
Yeah,
right. What happened here?
Right.
What happened? You want to know what was going on. But my funny Def Leppard story, actually, I used to play with a drummer called Jeff Rich, who was in a band called Status Quo. They're not big in the States.
I've heard of that band name before.
Yeah, so basically the thing with Jeff was when Rick, who's the drummer's name?
Rick.
I was going to say Rick Savage, but that's the bass player.
No, fuck.
We'll think of it in a second. Okay. It'll come to us. But anyway, when the drummer had his accident, Jeff Rich was the guy that played with them.
Oh, while he was figuring it out.
Yeah, and they played together.
Okay.
As well, and I don't know if the story goes. This is not my story. It's another one. But what actually happened was Jeff was late for a gig for some reason. It was a gig in Ireland, I think Dublin, and when he got there. The drummer was already playing, and Jeff.
Dude, that is one of the most incredible stories that he relearned how to play drums.
Yeah,
it's mind blowing stuff like that.
And the funny thing about it, Rick Allen.
There we go.
The funny thing about it was
we had it.
I was getting. There was a point with a magazine that I was doing some stuff for where we were going to get an interview with Steel Panther.
Okay.
And so I was like writing some questions.
Okay.
Because I figured, well, you're not going to say, what do you think about the Mixolydian scale? That's not.
Right.
No point.
Right.
And so one of the things, we never ended up getting the interview. But one of the joke questions I'd written out was to the bass player, was that I'd spoken to Rick Allen about playing Def Leppard with one arm playing drums.
Mm-hmm.
And his answer was, he said, well, I think I could play bass in Steel Panther with no arms.
That's hysterical.
That was.
I love that.
That was the only, and I also I had another question I wrote, which was like, I've got a question from a Japanese fan here. Is it okay if I read it out? And then they're like, oh, okay, and I'm like, oh, konnichiwa, and I read it out in Japanese. You're like, so how does that make you feel?
They're definitely kids. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, but my Def Leppard story was when they were doing the Hysteria album.
Yeah.
Because that was like over 4 years. I mean, obviously it wasn't 4 years of recording, but there's different things, two main tragedies that happened with the guitar player and obviously Rick Allen. But the thing that really made me laugh was that Rick Allen had said, he was getting back together. He's obviously had his surgery and he was starting to feel good. He was learning his thing, and obviously the drums were programmed on that record via Fairlight, I believe. Anyway, so he said he went down to the studio. He was all sort of like, yeah, this is great, And he said he opened the control room door, and he said that Joe Elliott was just he was crying his eyes out.
It's incredible
because he's probably on his 48,000th take of the word "and."
Yeah.
From what I hear from Mutt Lange, and he's just crying, and he said I just kind of backed out.
It's really incredible what he did with that band too.
Yeah.
Because if you hear those first couple of records, it's a different band.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It's a totally different band. It's crazy.
And I like those early records.
Yeah, they were great. All of it's great.
Yeah, On Through the Night.
That was one of those things too, like working for them and appreciating them as human beings.
Yeah.
Made me really dig into their catalog.
Right.
Honestly. Because watching them, they're the best live band I've ever heard.
Right.
Ever. Like, they sounded so crisp and so clean and just on their shit.
Right.
It made me dig into their catalog more. And it made me realize, like, how catchy their shit is. And
Oh,
a lot
yeah.
of that's Mutt. Like, it's...
Yeah, 100%.
And they're an incredible band.
And one of his things is he used to write jingles.
I can tell.
That's what he does. He used to write jingles.
Yeah, those albums he did are awesome.
And he doesn't seem to have, like, say, for example, for me, like when we were trying to set up the live stream and it was like not going right, after about half an hour, I'm like, ooh, like, it's like Mutt Lange's like sort of 2 years into a job and he's like, man, I know this is going to work.
Yeah, right. That's what's weird too. So Mutt Lange, he showed Kevin Churko everything he knows, Corey Churko's brother,
right,
who plays for Shania. So it's one whole circle.
Right.
It's a trip.
Yeah, because he's got so many.
Yeah, Kevin Churko's his like protege.
Oh, really?
However you would say that, yeah.
And do you think their productions sound similar, or?
I mean, Kevin's one of the main guys in hard rock and metal for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did like the earliest or latest Ozzy records.
Yeah.
A lot of all the Five Finger Death Punch stuff he does.
Right.
They say he's the 5th member of Five Finger.
Right.
Yeah. So
he's like the George Martin of.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Of the Beatles, because, I think that with Mutt Lange, it doesn't seem to matter what he does. He's like a really good tennis coach.
Right.
He looks at the person and doesn't try to make them do what all the other tennis players do. He goes, well, what can this guy do?
Right.
His legs are this long, his arms are this short, whatever. And I said, because you never would think that the guy who produced Shania Twain was the guy who produced. Well, I think in some ways you do see similarities.
I was just gonna say I can't remember what song it is, but there's a Shania song you can hear.
Is it the one where they go, "Ooh, rocket, yeah"? It's like that.
You can hear shit in it.
Yeah,
it's a trip, dude.
I think there was one tune where it was so weird because the chorus was literally like, "Oh yeah, rocket, yeah, you go, yeah," and then when it went back to the verse, it was, "I was out last night on Rozie."
Yes, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, rocket, yeah, and it was also like, so I think I might have been wrong about that. It was almost like he kind of
I don't think you are wrong about that.
Snipped half of this
you can definitely
tune out,
tell, dude.
and then he snipped half of this tune out.
Yep.
And that was a so funny thing because it was doing it live, and it was like when it went back to the verse, it was almost here, how can I you, and I fucking do it, and ooh, yeah, Saturday night or whatever it was. You know what I mean? I was thinking, I think he may have. I didn't know if he was getting a first. Hello, Matt, this is Joey. Are you sure about that?
Well, that was funny too. I mean, this might have been me, but I remember when we were doing pre-production, I had just got done working for them, ironically. And those guys were great, and they gave me like tour shirts and shit, like crew shirts. And I just happened to be wearing a Def Leppard crew shirt when we were in pre-production for Shania.
Right.
Not thinking.
Yeah, of course, yeah,
and
exactly.
one time I was walking past her, and I remember her kind of like looking at me. Now that could have just been me thinking that, but yeah, I remember that. I remember wearing one of their crew shirts and her kind of looking at me while I was wearing it. Like,
wow.
Why is that in here?
And funny enough, I hope this is okay to say, but there was a therapist in Las Vegas whose name I can't remember. If I do remember, I've got no problem saying it.
Cool.
And she told me that she had got an opportunity to go on a TV show talking to Shania Twain. And one of the things was this therapist had done the same as Mutt Lange had done, but the other way around, if you know what I'm saying.
Okay.
And I said, don't go on. And she was like, why? I said, because they're just going to eat you alive.
Right.
They don't give a shit what you know about therapy.
Right.
Especially Shania, who's been through this thing.
Yes.
She's just going to spray your blood everywhere.
Right.
Verbally speaking. You go, it's I've done enough TV, I do know. And it's exactly what they did. Because you know what producers are like.
Yes.
They're like, well,
they just want good TV, right?
Yeah, well, they want good TV, right? And normally they don't want to go, oh, no, I understand. They want someone to go, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. I think I did end up seeing the clip somewhere.
Yeah.
Wow. But that was basically what happened. But it was great, But anyway, so I'm really, it's exciting that you've taken some stuff from there.
Yeah, it's great. I love that job, man. It's cool.
And would you ever consider doing a solo thing? Are you only interested in being in other people's bands, or?
I dig the hired gun thing now, for sure.
Right.
I've thought about doing like instrumental stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a Mr. Scary type thing and putting that out.
Yeah.
I just haven't gotten around to it.
Right.
But yeah, I kind of like the hired gun thing.
Because people seem to love your online videos when you do your videos. You get a lot of attention for that.
Yeah. I just like doing the hired gun thing now. I don't really have the energy or capacity to start my own band.
Right. But you did do some studio work a little while ago. I was back in Tenerife, I think, and I saw something online.
That was, I think you're thinking about Chris Kell's stuff.
Yeah, I don't remember the name, but I remember
He's doing his own stuff. Yeah, he had me do some leads on that. That's great. That's been great. That's about it, though. I just did some stuff for Chris Kell. He's a good friend of mine. I would do anything for that guy.
What is your dream gig? Do you ever go to
Ozzy,
sleep?
Hands down.
Really?
Whose isn't, though? That's the dream guitar player gig, Ozzy, for sure. I mean, those albums, those solo records made my guitar playing what it is.
Yeah.
All of them.
And it seems weird that, well, maybe not weird, but even when he got rid of Zach the first time or the second time or whatever it was, it seemed to me like I could probably think of the guy's name, but this is one of these weird things that happened.
Joe Holmes?
The guy that's in, is it Firewind?
Oh, Gus G.
Gus G.
Gus G.
You know, great player and everything.
The shoes are too big to fill. No.
But it just seems...
Zach, did it.
Yeah.
You can't fill those shoes now. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. But I got a theory about guitar players in big bands. And this is just...
Hit me with it.
I am going to hit you with it. I am going to hit you with it. The thing about Zach is... Forget the speed, forget all of that, right? He, like Dimebag, like Jimmy Page, like Richie Blackmore, they've got the ability to sort of emotionally connect with the 100%. Audience, with their vibrato and
It's more than guitar playing.
Yeah, just the spirit of what they're doing.
Yes.
Right? And
Guitar Hero is a real thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's a real thing.
And it's just like, for me, and I think Gus G's great, you know.
He's incredible.
But what happens is with a lot of the, you bring these guys in and then you come to a big audience or a big gig, and I don't think anyone really cares about your arpeggios or anything like that. Maybe they do.
It might have been you. Someone told me once said you don't get paid by the note.
No, you don't.
And it's like the realest shit ever. Because the guys that are the fastest aren't making the money that like Slash is.
No.
And he's not the fastest guy in the world. But he's a fucking guitar hero. You know what I mean?
But again, he has that ability
100%.
To connect and put together these melodic tracks. In fact, I can't think of, when you think about, Eric Clapton, Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck, Slash, for me, there's 3 or 4 metal guys that could really play with feel. Dimebag was one of them.
Yeah.
Zach was one of them. I would even throw Andy James in there.
Yeah.
Very few of those guys play with that feel and then play with that connection to the audience, and that's why I think a lot of those people that come in, they just end up going by the and it's also probably kicked out of them as well, because they're like, well, play this and play that and don't do this, and you get the feeling that Zach sort of does what he wants.
He's incredible too, because he started when he was like 15 in the band when he was 19. Like, what? Like, how did he figure that kind of playing out in that time? It's like meant to be.
Yeah.
He was like a football player and like picked up a guitar at 15 years old and got Ozzy when he was 19.
Yeah.
It's just mind-blowing.
I just personally feel it's like that intent. Like the people that I know that have been really super successful at whatever.
Yeah.
And the thing is with guitar playing, we always talk about, this guy, like say for example, we were saying earlier, Brian Robertson was in Thin Lizzy at 17, Zach Wilde was doing this at 16 or whatever. Boris Becker won Wimbledon at 16. Mm-hmm. For a lot of other sports and things, it's not a big deal.
Right.
But guitar playing's only been around for electric guitar playing's only been around for 40, 50 years.
Not that long, yeah.
Not really that long.
But then there's guys like Doug Aldrich who had a thing going on in the 80s, but he didn't really break until his 30s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the Dio gig, he was in his 30s.
Yeah.
So it's weird how that shit works.
I think it's just like I was going to say earlier, with a lot of those guys who really, really do well, I don't think they worry about the how.
No, they just enjoy it.
Yeah, I don't think they think about how they're going to get anywhere.
No.
Or how they're going to do anything. They just go, this is what I want to do.
I mean, that was you with the Lick Library stuff. You've told me that before. You just did it and you had fun doing it.
That was exactly what happened with Lick Library and Total Accuracy before that.
Right.
And I remember this one if I could just tell you this little story.
Please do.
You know, I was a better looking man when I was younger, and I had long hair and this, that, and the other. And I remember going and playing this gig one night, and at that time, the whole sort of Total Accuracy as it was then was in one room that I was renting from the guy that I ended up being a business partner with somehow. But anyway, I was at this one room, and the drum kit, the mixer, the phone, the bed, everything was in that one room, right? And I remember going to this gig one night, and this girl, I don't know, I can't remember exactly what happened. Hey, come back to my place, you know how it works. And so, you know, she came back to my place, and she walked into I was in a house, but there's just this one room was where I lived. And so we walked in this room, and she just said, how the can you live like this? Yeah. Like, she's seriously like, and I was so shocked, and I said, I really don't understand what you're talking about. She said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, I'm surrounded by all the most wonderful things in the world.
Everything you need.
And in a few minutes, we're probably going to be fucking.
Yeah.
What part of that am I not getting?
Yeah, right.
I guess for her, it was like the future, your bank account, you know. I was like, I don't get this is like the best life ever, isn't it?
Right.
You know, how can it ever get any better? And then, you know, obviously, eventually, like, and that's only one thing I would say about anybody that wants to become a professional musician. Some of the fun does go out of it. I don't know. Did you find that?
I haven't yet. The pandemic obviously has made things frustrating.
Yeah.
A little bit, because all I want to do is play shows.
Yeah.
And like I said to you earlier when I showed up, like the pool that was this big is this big right now.
Yeah.
That part's frustrating, but as for playing, like, no, I haven't lost the fun of it. That's the thing. If you try to explain playing a show to someone that's never played a show, it's like electricity. It's just like the coolest feeling ever, and no drug can top it. There's nothing that can.
And I've tried.
Yeah, right. there's nothing that can create that feeling. It's and I haven't had that in a while due to the pandemic.
Yeah.
So no, I can't say I've had the fun has gotten out of it. It gets frustrating at times.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But what I kind of mean is, like, in the early days of Total Accuracy and Lick Library, there was no contracts in place or anything. You could pretty much do whatever I wanted to do.
More of a wild, wild west thing.
Yeah, and the trouble is what happens is, I mean, I've got a few sayings that I live my life by, but one of them's everybody wants to be first at coming second.
I've used that saying, and I give you credit every time.
Oh, thank you.
I always tell people about that. It's true.
It is.
It's totally true.
And that's what I found was, like, once the thing started to become successful, certain people would start showing up, and they'd have their own opinions, even though they was like.
Right.
I think the guy I ended up being in business with, that when I pitched him the idea, the first thing he said was, well, if it was such a good idea, someone else would have done it.
That's not true.
Well, I think, how would in anything in the world, it was like building a nuclear power station or doing Lick Library, like, how does that work?
A different way of thinking, I guess, but yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, do you know what I mean? So when you, I don't know, you know, if you're religious or not, can you imagine Adam saying that to Eve?
Right.
You know, she's got this new hat on. And she's like, what do you think of my hat, Adam? And he's like, well, if it's such a great idea, someone else would have done it. He goes, well, it's only fucking us. There is nobody else.
That's hysterical.
One of us, the first thing we come up with is going to be the first thing. So anyway, yeah. But that's where a little bit of the fun can eventually go out of it.
That,
because, and the reason I ended up sort of walking away from it was because you are surrounded by people who really don't know what the fuck they're talking about, quite frankly.
That, and there's a lot of jaded musicians.
Yeah.
But I just kind of tune that stuff out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I try to always keep that 12-year-old in me alive.
Yeah.
That kid that just read Guitar World, wanted to be like my heroes.
Yeah.
I try to always remember what that was like. You know what I mean? And I think that keeps me excited about things.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I did it for 30 years, so it was not like I didn't.
Yeah. Totally.
Sort of try, but, you know, you'd have people just coming in with these bizarre things. Because the trouble is, when you get a successful company that you've basically, you know, it'd be like, say, for example, you know, you do your own band and you have you write a couple of hit records and this, that, and the other. Everybody's like, well, I know what's better for you more than you do.
Yeah, that
somehow
would be rough. Yeah,
it is. That is the rough part. Everyone goes, oh, we should do this.
Well, that's what gets rough with the hired gun stuff too, right?
Yes.
You're hired.
Yes. And so what?
It's a give and take.
So going back to the Sebastian Bach thing, what was the upside, and was there any downside?
No, because he's always been a hero of mine. I've always been a big Skid Row fan. There wasn't really a downside. I enjoy playing those songs.
Right.
All those songs are great. Even the solo stuff's great.
Did they want to write at all? Or?
Yeah, they were writing when I was jamming with him. I think he's coming out with a new record or something like that. But he's just been with Brent so long that they just have such a gelled chemistry.
Yeah. I mean, that's understandable.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, that's one of the things about, I think, a lot of outsider people or people that are non-professionals don't realise. We're all human beings.
Yes.
It's like if you're working on a band on a weekend, maybe you're doing a Friday gig, maybe you're doing a Saturday gig. If one of those people is annoying, it's like, meh.
Yeah.
You travel to the gig by yourself.
Yeah.
You say hello, you get up, you do your thing. How about, but you stick yourself on the bus with that person for 3 days and you're going to be beating the crap out of each other.
So kind of what you were saying earlier, like I think that's also why I've gotten the production type work.
Right.
Because it's all about the hang.
Yeah.
That's like the number one rule. Be cool to be around.
Yeah.
Because you're around these people all the time. Especially on tour.
Oh.
You're talking about a hallway. You know what I mean? This fucking wide. Like, you have to be cool to be around. And you have to be lax. No one wants to be stuck on a bus away from their girlfriend and shit stuck around you being miserable.
Yeah.
So I think that's, when people ever ask me stuff like that, I always tell them, like, it's all about the hang.
Yeah. You're
It's
absolutely
the
right.
Biggest rule ever.
And to be honest, it took me a long time to figure that out because I've always been really finicky with music. I don't like people that overplay.
Sure.
I don't like people that don't do this a certain way and stuff like that. It's very difficult to get the perfect band. When you think about
it really is. That's what makes such great bands such miracles.
Yeah.
Like Van Halen's or Motley Crue's or whatever. It's a miracle that those bands even existed because it's so hard to find 4 guys or 5 guys that are all cool and all have their... It's crazy to think about.
Yeah. And I actually think in the case of Van Halen, this is where... Now, I don't know if you know the French philosopher Camus.
No.
Can't remember his first name. He sort of says, there's like three ways that you can react to life. One is suicide.
Oh, no.
No, I mean, I'm not saying that. It's just what he said.
Right. I'll try not to do that one.
One is suicide, which can be painful. The other one is faith. A lot of people, which is great.
Yep.
And the other one is just acceptance that there's just this chaos that we're going through, and you just have to just accept it.
Right.
But for me, when I think about, and Van Halen is actually, to me, is sort of almost the proof of God in a way, because you think, how can those 4 guys come together in that way? That is just crazy.
Eddie himself is fucking mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Because I obviously wasn't alive at the time, but the thought of like those guitar players being a thing and him just showing up and doing what he did. He had I have guys to go off of and go, oh, okay, I like the way that sounds.
Yeah.
What the fuck was he listening to create Eruption? It's crazy to think what he did. Like, that dude is the most mind-blowing situation.
I've actually got a thing, and I'm probably going to get a lot of heat for saying this, but I remember going to see the Van Halen tribute band, the Atomic Punks, at the Santa Fe, which I think is the Steel Panther guy, right?
I think he was in it at one point.
Pretty sure he was playing on the night that I went.
Yeah.
And I remember watching the band and thinking, this guy's really, really good. He's got everything down.
Yeah.
But there's something missing.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And I was like, what is missing? Mm-hmm. What's missing? It was a drummer.
Ah, what a trip.
And that's what I had a light bulb moment.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh my God, Alex Van Halen. It's those 2 guys together.
So relatable to that, like I'm a huge Pantera freak. No band comes above them for me. Dimebag gets all the accolade, but it's Vinnie Paul too. It's the same situation, brothers, right? They're just a turned up Van Halen in a way.
Yeah.
Vinnie Paul does not get enough credit. If he wasn't doing what he's doing with those drums, that band would not be. It's the same kind of situation. Like, he's just such an important part of that band.
And you get the feeling, you sort of get the feeling from, watching a lot of interviews and being a huge fan of Van Halen, that Alex doesn't really get the credit, not just because of playing, but he was really the one that pushed him, probably like, come on, man, we need to play together and we need to...
Wasn't he the oldest?
He was the older brother.
Yeah.
And also, apparently, they used to play a lot of kind of weird fusion-y, just like they weren't restricted by, this has got to be this, or that's got to be that.
Right.
They just play.
Yeah, that's great.
You know, and they would do these odd time things, whether they knew it or not, they didn't.
Right.
You know, whether they knew it or not. But that was what it was for me, and I was sort of thinking, it's those two guys, when they play together, Alex Van Halen doesn't get the credit for that. I feel, without going into a whole thing about it, I feel if there's one person on earth I really feel for, it's Alex Van Halen. I think, oh my God, you know, after all that time,
definitely
being so tight with, you know, and everyone was always talks about Eddie, which is absolutely probably well deserved. But I don't think Alex Van Halen gets enough credit or enough love, and especially what he must be going through now. I mean, I'm not sure that ever get better. I'm sure in time it will.
Same with Vinny.
Yeah.
That whole situation was in front of him. It's crazy.
Yeah. And
I can't imagine what that was like for him.
I met Dimebag once, and he was one thing that really impressed me about him. It was at NAMM, and you know, he was doing the autographs, and he was writing a different little message.
I love it, dude.
You know what I mean? Like,
he inspired me so much, not just as a guitar player, but how to be as a person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The stories that I've heard from people and just the way he was, and yeah, he was the coolest fucking dude ever.
And that for me was just something that was. I noticed he was like writing a different little thing. I mean, it wasn't like pages and pages and pages.
Shit like that. Those
Which,
little stories like that are
yeah.
so cool.
And what was super, and I'll tell you another one, someone else who really impressed me. I won't say who this is, but there's other people that purposely shorten their autograph.
And why would that be?
They don't want to give you the time.
Yeah, it's a trip.
They don't want to give you the time. I mean, you could also argue that they want to make sure everybody, you know, gets taken care of. But for me, the one person that really impressed me, it was a good few years ago, Mick Mars, who I actually think is a great player, that again doesn't get
enough credit. Yeah,
the credit. I mean, that guy knows that 800 sound, and apparently
he's loud too.
He knows that because he knows
they are fucking loud.
Because he knows you have to do that.
Yeah,
you know, you can't. Those amps are supposed to be loud. It's just
you don't get the juice out of them unless they're fucking loud.
You don't. They're not meant to be
practice amps.
No,
they're not.
They're not. They're supposed to make your mum go, get out of the house, you know, you fucking loser. That's what they're supposed to do. It's designed for that. But he really knows that Marshall tone. He's got one of the best rhythm, apart from Edward, he's got one of the best rhythm sounds I've heard. Look, I mean,
like Kickstart My Heart and shit.
Yeah, I'm not going to, you know, I mean, look, I really like his solos. Because, again, he's somebody who can connect.
It works for Motley. You can't argue that. It works for Motley.
I always say you can't knock success.
You can't.
You simply can't. You know, you can complain about it. You can say, how can you, how dare you be richer than me?
Right.
But really and truthfully, when you think about, again, Mick Mars and Tommy Lee, they're holding that thing together.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the bass player's definitely got better.
Yes.
You know, but I'm not going to say anything about that, but he's definitely got better.
Yeah,
and that's a really good thing. And he's a heck of a rock star.
Oh, yeah. Of the 80s, for sure, too.
Yeah, he's a heck of a rock star.
He's one of the names from the 80s.
And you need that sometimes in a band.
Yes, you do.
You know what I mean? But I think
he's like a Gene Simmons, I would say, of Motley.
Yeah, 100%.
Something like that.
Yeah. Just with a few less notes.
Yes.
You know, you got ones like...
He's another guy, too. Gene is an incredible bass player. People don't know that or talk about that.
Yeah.
He's an incredible bass player.
I think... It's difficult to know, you know, when you say that this, you know, this guy's great, what it is. But for me, I was never a Kiss fan.
Okay, like, you either are or you aren't.
Well,
they're one of those bands.
I'm going to make an argument for why I'm not a Kiss fan. Right, in 70s rock, 60s and 70s rock.
Right.
In England, we never had that. The people that dressed up and did makeup, they were on top of the pops. Okay. They were pop bands,
right?
Or trying to think what did we call them at the time? Glam. They were glam rock bands. They weren't taken. What would happen in England, say for example, is you would start with Sweet and Mud, and then someone would give you a Deep Purple record, and you go, oh right, sorry, that was just a practice, even though it turned out later on that there was a lot of validity in those bands. But when you're young, you want to be cool.
Sure.
And our way of being cool was not wearing spandex and glittery stuff. So eventually you would get a Deep Purple record. And even if you look at the early days of Led Zeppelin, later on they sort of dressed up a bit, but in the early days they just looked like anybody.
Yes, they did.
You know what I mean? And so for us in England, you get to see some band from America looking like that. You think, like, what the what?
Right. Yes.
You know, shouldn't you be doing more practice?
Seemed unnecessary or
Yeah,
something.
we just seem like you're emphasising on the wrong things.
So the flip to that, though, is when I was a kid,
Right.
you had these superheroes playing guitar.
Yeah.
It couldn't be any fucking cooler than that to a 7-year-old or 8-year-old.
Yeah.
I literally play guitar because of Ace Frehley. I used to think he was so good that his guitar was smoking.
Yeah. That was...
You know what I mean? Like, I thought he was so... And I was like, dude, no one else's guitar smokes. Like, this dude's guitar smokes. But yeah, it was like a superhero with a guitar in his hands.
Yeah.
So that's the flip side to it.
I totally get that. But you got to understand, like, in
It opened everything for me.
in colder countries... Right, and this, I think a lot of people don't realise this. Like, if you're like, say for example, like I was living in a colder country,
Right.
you know, you're going to the gig most of the year. You know, you haven't got time to put on fucking loads of makeup and wear. It's not gonna, you know, you're probably going to freeze your ass off in the gig anyway.
Right.
But that's just not. That wasn't part of our culture. But I think
that makes total sense too.
You know what I mean?
Sabbath and shit like that.
Exactly. You know what I mean? You're not going to be going down while you're wearing a tiara.
Makeup. No, you're not.
And makeup, yeah.
No,
What'd you think of that? Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe put it on your solo album, but
yeah.
Well, let's talk about it. So for me, it was in England. It was all about the music. But having said that, I actually became sort of I'm trying to. I don't even really know how this. Can't even remember how this came about. But Tommy Thayer is obviously a guitar player from Kiss now.
Yes.
I think I interviewed him somewhere. We exchanged numbers, and then he came to Vegas. I think when they do the golf thing and that, obviously Gene and Paul, not doing that. He goes and does that stuff.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure he's, okay with. And he called me up one time and said, "Oh, I'm doing the golf thing. You know, do you want to come to the?
Right.
I think it's the Virgin Hotel now, but whatever it was.
It was Hard Rock before.
Hard Rock, right? So you want to come down and have a drink?" And I came down and sort of hung out with him for a while, and I took everyone was coming out asking photos, so I took all the photos.
Right.
And everything. And then I ended up going to see him in Europe, and I became a fan.
Really?
Yeah, not
of Tommy.
The whole band.
Oh yeah. Oh okay. Yes.
And nothing to do with the makeup, the blood. I couldn't care less about that. I really couldn't. They were just a really good band.
They really are.
With really, really good songs.
People look past it.
Yeah.
They really do.
But for me, being someone who's I'm a big, practicer. I'm a big, you know me. That's what I do.
PRS is always out every time.
Yeah, I'm always playing. I'm always playing. And for me, I just thought, this is just a really, really good band.
You can't knock success. Since 74, those guys have been doing that.
But not only a really, really good band, but they got really, really good songs.
Yes, they do. Yeah. They're catchy.
That I could remember. And I came away a fan.
That's great.
And funny enough, it's like that is not the first time that's happened to me.
No, that's happened to me before too.
It's true, isn't it?
Where you see them live, you go, oh, fuck. Def Leppard, again.
Yeah.
I was kind of whatever about them. And then I worked for them and saw them rehearsing and watched their show every night. I was like, fuck, dude, these guys are incredible. I get it. Like, I totally get it.
And I had that with the Rolling Stones.
Okay.
I was literally dragged kicking and screaming to a Rolling guy. I was like, oh, God, like, really? You know what I mean? For me, I was into AC/DC and Van Halen and all this sort of stuff. And I went to see them.
All the heavier stuff.
Yeah, all the heavier stuff. And one thing, it was a very similar experience to when I went to see the band Madness. They just, everything was a hit.
I love it.
Every Rolling Stones song was a hit that they played that first time I saw them. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't realise these guys
they're icons for a reason. You know
what I
mean? Yeah. I
honestly had no idea they had so many hits. Mm-hmm. And all the other thing that I really didn't realise was Mick Jagger. What an incredible frontman.
Still.
Yeah, and I'm going back to the 90s now.
Crazy, yeah. Still.
You know? Yep. This guy was like...
Yeah.
And it was like almost like he's standing next to you. How he managed to project himself.
Really
this was at Wembley. So we're not talking like this is not like a accidental
Bruce
club.
Dickinson kind of has that effect too.
Yeah.
The way he is on stage, it's like he's next to you. It's a trip how he can project himself. He's a front man that comes to mind when you mention that.
So do you notice the digs? I mean, as you know, Steve Harris is a friend of mine, so I'm pretty careful what I say. But do you notice that the digs that he's has at America when he's playing live? Do you ever notice that?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't.
Well, I'll tell you, I should probably just leave it there. But
Bruce,
yeah.
really? I was at the show, kind of related. I was at the Ozfest show when he and Sharon kind of got into it.
What? Does anyone... Because even Steve, I've asked Steve directly about that.
So...
And he just goes, it's well documented. And he
as a spectator, he was out there talking about we don't need a reality show, because at the time the Osbournes was a thing.
Right.
And he said, we don't need a reality show.
See what I'm saying?
Da-da-da-da-da-da. And then all of a sudden, eggs started hitting Nico's kit.
Right.
And then their songs were getting cut. And then it was just a shoddy set. But it was obviously, like, not them.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then their set was over, and then...
I thought they pulled the power on them.
They did. The songs were getting cut.
Wow.
Yes, it was crazy, dude. And then they were done. And then Sharon came out and was like, Bruce is an asshole, da-da-da-da, like on the mic.
Yeah.
And then, like, half the crowd I felt left, because it was Sabbath and Maiden.
Right.
Which are kind of two different sides of the fence.
I was really shocked that they even did that show, because, like, the one thing about Iron Maiden is they're a fantastic. I mean, can't go into the whole thing, but they're a fantastic business.
Right.
They just are.
Absolutely.
You know,
the whole Eddie thing, all of it.
That was kind of an accident, but I mean, as a business,
yeah.
For people going on the road, and again, as I was going to say earlier, this is where, to me, I agree with you about Gene Simmons. I agree with you about his bass playing and the fact that he puts on, like he quite rightly says, you know, the Rolling Stones can kind of go around 2 hours a night with a pair of plimsolls on. Mm-hmm. You know, try wearing this stuff.
Yeah.
So
yeah, dude, those boots and shit. Oh my god, I can't even imagine performing like that.
So I get it, but I think if the music business owes Gene Simmons something, it's the merchandise.
Oh yeah, someone said it once that everyone wants to be the Beatles. They want to be Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
And it's the truest shit ever.
Yeah. I mean, for me, he basically made, because when I was a kid, merchandise, you're selling out, man. You know, you kind of like...
Yeah, they said, fuck that.
Well, a very wise man once said, if you're not left-wing in your 20s, you don't have a heart. If you're still left-wing in your 30s, you don't have a brain. And then...
I love that.
There's a lot of truth to that.
Right.
But what I love about Gene Simmons, you always find that these people, as long as they're unashamedly, sort of connected to what it is they believe in, you can't touch them.
Right.
Like, you could never imagine Gene Simmons apologising for anything.
No, ever.
Like, he could run somebody over in the street and be like, well, he should have recognised me. You know what I mean?
Right.
He wouldn't have, I know he would never want to do it, but you can only imagine he would never apologise.
Right.
And that's the next point I want to get to is, like, what do you think about, I know we're going a little bit off topic here, but what do you think about this Joe Rogan thing about him apologising? I was absolutely gutted when he did that.
Yeah, I kind of wish that wasn't a thing. It's just the way the world is right now. It's weird, man. I don't know. It sucks. Like, I really like Joe Rogan. I think he's really turning the tide on everything, but it's just how it is right now, man.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone that says the opposing side ends up apologizing at some point.
Yeah. But, there's a saying in England, they say, go woke, go broke.
Yeah.
And my worry is that, this whole cancel thing is ridiculous. But
it's horrible. It's killing creativity.
Yeah. Well, not my creativity. They can kiss my ass. I really don't care.
The world is just killing creativity.
Yeah.
I was telling someone the other day, it's like people were so creative in the 60s, 70s, and 80s and 90s because there wasn't all this Facebook and shit for people to sell their opinions.
Right.
You know what I mean? People were busy working on themselves. You know what I mean? And now we're in a generation where people are more focused on their opinion instead of being creative and working on themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I've got two things I think I want to add to that. It's like, say, for example, with Total Accuracy and Lick Library, right? Now, I never woke up one morning and said, okay, right, I'm going to be really successful at this. Right. Stuff doesn't happen like that. It's the same with you with the Shania Twain. You sort of fall into it.
Yeah.
But hopefully you fall into it from a point of doing something that's just fun and you enjoy.
Yeah, right.
Where I think we've got to is everybody wants to get to wherever they think they're getting to really, really quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And the fact of the matter is, with Total Accuracy, I didn't make any real money till I was about 40.
Right.
And I started the sort of mechanics of those companies at about 23.
Yes, that's incredible.
You see what I'm saying?
That's called hard work.
Right.
Period.
But again, it was fun. But the point is, it takes a long time. Now, everyone, you go, say to someone now, okay, so we can work on this thing where you can be successful, but it's going to take 20 years. They're like, yeah, fuck yeah, I need this by next Wednesday.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
And I think that's the problem with my generation. For
yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
Or younger.
And so what I think is, where do you get noticed quicker? By creating something yourself and spending 10 to 20 years developing it, or just criticising someone else?
Yeah, it's easier to do that.
It's easier to do that. So what you do is you go on Facebook, you go on, and apparently the Facebook users is just going down and down and down and down.
I'm sure it is.
And I'm not got nothing against Mark Zuckerberg. It's a free. I've got nothing against these tech companies. It's a free service. Yeah. If you don't want to use it, don't use it. That's my. If you like Smiths instead of Walmart, well then go to Smiths. So that's my opinion on that. People are, but also going back to the 60s, like you were saying, Frank Zappa sort of summed it up. When I was a kid, and this is exactly what happened to me in Lick Library. When I was a kid, you'd have these kind of suit guys. Frank Zappa did a really brilliant speech about this. So you'd have these suit guys in suits who had money. Mm-hmm. So like you would come along with your songs and they go, well, I don't know if it's any good, but let's throw some money at it, see if it works.
Right.
So you'd have this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then the trouble is that morphed into all these A&R guys having an opinion.
Yes.
Well, there's the reggae record that's number 2 in the chart, so you need to put a bit of reggae in your song. Yeah, well, that's not what we do.
Yeah.
And by that rationale, you might as well have 4 bars of reggae, 4 bars heavy metal, 4 bars fucking blues. Well, because then we'll sell to everyone in the world. Right. When everybody just goes, that just sucks. I don't know what.
Right.
I'm not buying that. It's fucking rubbish. Mm-hmm. You see what I mean? So that's what I think. I think back in the day when I was a kid, it wasn't really the suit people that had the money, like Frank Zappa said. They just put the money up for something that they thought might work.
Yeah.
But the trouble is what that morphed into was A&R people starting to have an opinion. I mean, I remember talking about, Michelangelo Baio about this. He was doing a record when he was in Holland or one of those bands. And the A&R guy comes in, with his girlfriend or whatever. And he's like, yeah, the bass drum could do with a little bit more 10K. And he's like, see his girlfriend's like, yeah. See what I'm saying?
Oh no!
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you get into this like ridiculous situation.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we were talking about Thin Lizzy.
Yes, please.
So
I can talk about Thin Lizzy for hours.
It turns out you are a Thin Lizzy, massive Thin Lizzy fan.
I love them.
I'm a huge.
I think they're so underrated, man. It's crazy.
Yeah. Why do you think they were? I don't know if you know any of the history, but they're so problematic. That band. Apparently, there's problems at every single.
Oh really?
Yeah, I mean,
I
just with oh my god, yeah, just with absolutely everything. Yeah,
I feel like people just talk about Jailbreak. You know what I mean? There's so many good songs. That band is just incredible.
Yeah.
I was on tour with a band called Hell or High Water for a while, and Matt Pauling, the other guitar player, was a big Thin Lizzy guy. And we would just shoot shit about Thin Lizzy all the time.
Do you think, my question to you is, do you think that, okay, so for example, Led Zeppelin, right? There's a lot of pieces to the Led Zeppelin pie.
Yeah.
Not just the dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. Yeah. You've got the acoustic bit.
Yeah.
You've kind of got the folk bit.
Right.
Right. You've got the heavy bit. You've got the blues bit. But whenever anyone makes a Led Zeppelin inspired album, they seem to forget all of those other bits.
Yeah.
And they only do the heavy bit.
Right.
And I had a similar feeling about Thin Lizzy, especially on Angel from the Coast, from the Jailbreak album. Everybody forgot about that folk side of that band.
Absolutely.
You know, no one ever really talks about that. And if you think about Brian Downey, and you think about his drumming, he doesn't really go, guys up. He's very kind of like
so cool.
folky, kind of the Irish.
Get what you're saying.
Some people know, and they
have that big Irish background to them, big time.
My friend Johnny Grennan, Irish guitar player, he calls it the diddly eye. Well, he was a diddly eye. He calls it. I mean, that's not me, so don't send me loads of threatening messages. That's Johnny. Send them to Johnny. He's Irish. He can take it. But with Johnny, great guitar player, he calls it the diddly eye. He does a lot of that stuff. He's Irish. He calls it himself. Mm-hmm. But I think that is one of the things that got missed with Thin Lizzy. And the other thing that really bummed me out about Thin Lizzy is because, for me, when the whole metal thing started to happen and the harder kind of sound started to happen.
Like 80, 81?
Yeah. In my opinion, they should have just stopped.
Okay.
Because, it's like Led Zeppelin trying to be the Pussycat Dolls. Just because that's popular.
I love the Thunder and Lightning record.
Right, but that's because of maybe a little bit.
And that wouldn't have happened.
No, I do love Cold Sweat.
Ugh, so cool. Wasn't that 82?
Yeah, I do. I'm not sure of the
God,
year, but
Sykes added to that band was just an extra punch for sure.
But if you go back to the previous years of Thin Lizzy, Phil Lynott was always trying to surround himself with people that were popular at the time. Like, I don't know if you know, he had a band. He had a band with some punk guys. I think it was Steve Jones from the Pistols.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it never became like a big thing like the John Sykes thing did. And they did. I think they were called the Nasties. Someone correct me in the comments. And they did a Christmas record. He was always trying to do that.
That's so cool.
For me, even though the Thunder and Lightning record, I did like it. I sort of thought, well, what's next? Well, you can do like a Slayer record,
Yeah, I get what you're going with that.
You see what I'm saying? You're not Thin Lizzy anymore.
That was their last record, wasn't it?
It was the last record, yeah. I mean, he's obviously having a... And then he obviously did the brilliant thing with Gary Moore, what was it? Out in the Fields.
I'm just a big Sykes freak, too. Like, I just think that guy's playing is so underrated.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that we were talking earlier, and I watched a lot of those Whitesnake documentaries, and it was just it was a real shame. It was like what happens with a lot of artists. That was a business thing.
Yeah, he's just the first of like guess you could say the shreddy Les Paul guys, like the Doug Aldriches and stuff. Those guys that just play really quick on a Les Paul.
Yeah.
To me, he's like the original guy that like really cooked like that on a Les Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just did so much good shit, man. That 87 record, too, is probably one of my favorite records ever made.
And do you think like that he really popularized that sort of like metal pentatonic thing that a lot of people... Do you know what I mean? I think he was like...
Definitely. Ahead of his time, for sure.
Whereas with someone like Zach and other people, they get the credit for that.
Shreddy Les Paul guys, that's
what
I'm saying,
yeah. But John Sykes was kind of the original.
First guy. 81 he was playing like that.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of that stuff going on.
And the funny thing is, I think it's something. It's scary in a way, because great guitar player, great songwriter, great looking guy,
coolest looking guy,
right? Yeah. Still got fucked by the business.
Isn't it crazy? Yeah.
Right.
Had his own thing going on, which is one of the keys to the Guitar Hero thing we were talking about. He had his own thing. The Meander Black Les Paul, his whole look, that snake skin. It was like a snake studded strap. His whole thing was just the coolest.
He had it all going on, but he's still...
Yeah, I can't say... You have to be a musician to really know about John Sykes.
Yeah.
He's not like a Slash or anything like that.
No.
You have to be a guitar player to really...
But that's sort of my point. Is like, how did he not...
It's crazy.
Get that thing? And I think it's basically because of business. That's the only thing, because I think we were talking earlier. I think he wanted to be part of, the business side of... Bands are businesses, I don't care what anybody says.
Oh, of course they are.
They are. And I think he wanted to be part of the business, making the business decisions. And it was sort of like, well, thanks for all your... But the interesting thing about it is, for me, is you could do what you want in... Who is it? Coach Corey Wayne, who you introduced me to, by the way.
Great.
Thank you for that.
Of course.
Who said, you can ignore reality, but you can't ignore the consequences of reality.
Right.
Right? And the fact of the matter is like, as much as, David Coverdale got in control of the business and all this sort of thing, really, and for me, that the 1987 record was the last really good Whitesnake album.
He did... What was the album after that? The one with Steve Vai was good, which I think is after that.
Well...
But for beginning to end, yes. 100%.
I didn't particularly like the Steve Vai one.
You didn't.
As much as I admire his talent.
There's one record actually, Good to Be Bad, that has Doug on it. Let
me ask you this, right? When it comes to Whitesnake, in my personal opinion, and Led Zeppelin and everything of that era for me growing up and everything, it's riff rock.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
It's riff rock.
Yep.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say Steve Vai doesn't write riffs,
I would agree with that.
right?
Totally.
The only riff I can honestly...
Totally.
I'm sorry if Steve Vai's watching this. I apologize. Not that he would be, but I'm just, and he's a great musician. He plays great. Blah blah blah. But the only riff I can think of is the dum 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 dum, which is
not a riff guy.
No, if that's the best you've got, but don't get me wrong.
I think that comes from the Frank Zappa beginnings, though.
Maybe.
You know what I mean? That's more of like a fusiony, jammy thing.
Maybe.
World, you could say.
But to me, if you're going to play it, the fact of the matter is, if you're going to go out and play stadiums, you've got to have go down, go down, go down, go down. People love familiarity.
Yes.
And that's what you got to have. And I think that once on that particular record, some great playing.
Yeah.
And everything. I mean, if they'd have taken David Coverdale off, it could have been a great solo album.
Right. Oh no. That's hysterical, but it's true.
But that was it. It was like, well, there's no riffs, and I'm like, if you're a rock guy, if you grew up on AC/DC like I did, you want ga ga dum.
Yeah.
Ga ga dum.
Yeah.
It's really simple, but the second that thing kicks off.
My favorite thing I think he did was the David Lee Roth stuff, hands down.
Yeah.
The Eat 'Em and Smile stuff is just so fucking cool.
That first album.
I still run that record religiously.
And to be honest, that was probably, to be fair to him, the Going Crazy riff.
So cool.
As much as it's quite complicated because it crosses over the beat. It's good.
Fucking awesome.
Rose,
so cool.
That was it. But again, as we were talking earlier, it got to the second album, like we were talking about with Frank Zappa, obviously.
Yeah.
The Suits or whatever it was. You got the right hit record. It was such a shame because the Skyscraper was still good, but Eat 'Em and Smile was. David Lee Roth said himself it was just like a shield and a sword, and
right.
That's why that record was really. And I love Greg Bissonette. I don't know if you.
Is that the drummer?
The drummer. Yeah. That was fantastic. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, he put a
player
for coming out of Van Halen. He definitely put a fucking band together. That's for sure. That band is awesome. And
they couldn't sustain it. And I think that's the difference.
That's what's so weird about it, right? Because it's such a good band.
Well, I think the difference, what makes Van Halen, for me, I wouldn't say better, but no, I will say better. What made them a better band is they're a band.
Yeah.
They're not going to... Can you imagine Alex Van Halen going, oh yeah, we'll write a few pop tunes for you?
With credit, Michael Anthony, that guy is Van Halen.
Yeah.
The backups, the bass playing, all of it.
He's another guy that I feel... Yeah. Well, he's done all right.
He's fine, but yeah.
Yeah, he's done all right. Because, they were splitting the publishing back then.
Yeah.
Which I saw a thing on Van Halen the other day where I think it was Ted Templeman was saying, don't split the publishing. But I think where I disagree with that is bands like Van Halen, they would work those tunes up together.
That's why it sounded like Van Halen.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Again,
and that is worth something.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, that's worth something.
Yep.
Is it worth 25%? I don't know. That's a decision for somebody else.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, it's like if I brought in a riff, if we were in a band together and you were like, okay, let's cut that a little bit off and do that, and you put the time in the rehearsal studio to make that happen, that's worth something.
Totally.
And I can remember, I don't know if you remember that band. Who was that band that did, I think most of them are dead now. I think one's still alive. Johnny got a red the food down there. Make it older.
I've heard that, yeah.
So what are they, I can't remember the name of the band. Oh, The Outfield.
Okay.
I used to do a lot of the same shows as them in the.
Wow, that's fun.
In England, and they were called the Baseball Boys.
Okay.
Originally. And anyway, they didn't split the publishing, and so one guy would turn up with a brand new BMW.
I heard that about that band Autograph.
Right, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, okay. And here's the other thing I think is...
Ferrari, the other guy's driving something else.
Yeah, on a bicycle or whatever. And I think the thing is also really annoying about that, it's like, if you write a song, say I play drums as you know as well, so if you write a song and that song becomes a hit, I've got to go on the road and promote that for you. Right?
Right.
So I've got to go on the road and do all these shows. Every time I do a show, everyone's like, fuck yeah, you're getting paid and I'm only just getting... Now, is that worth the same that you get?
Right.
No.
Right.
But it's definitely worth something.
Yes.
If I'm going out and promoting that,
yeah,
and you're making money every time I do,
right,
that to me is definitely worth something.
Totally.
So I was going to go into a big Thin Lizzy story, but I think we've probably done quite a bit now. So it might be...
You're the boss, dude.
Unless you work... I'm trying to think if there's anything else here I want to add, but The problem is my Thin Lizzy story goes on for quite some time. And
one of my favorite bands.
Right. Well, okay, so let's finish up with the Thin Lizzy story.
Please.
So I was at a friend of mine that went to the same school as me. He got into a really successful pop band.
Okay.
Whose name I can't remember. They had hits in the UK. They're doing really well. And he actually, I bumped into him somewhere. It might have been in a nightclub called Hollywood's, and we exchanged phone numbers and blah blah blah. Really cool guy. And I think he either called me up one day and he said, "Oh God, you never guess who's living at my house." Freddie Mercury. I don't fucking know. He goes, "Brian Robertson." I was like, "What?" Couldn't believe it. And apparently this is something that Brian Robertson did. He went and lived with fans,
Wow.
which I think was great for a couple of weeks, Anyway,
Tops.
long story, tops. Yeah, tops. I'm being generous when I say
Yeah.
that. And then the funny thing was, I said, "Hey, do you think you could get him to do a video for Total Accuracy?" So we had a chat with him, and so we managed to figure it out. Anyway, Steve Harris, who I said before, is a friend of mine, great guy. I said, "Look, we need some video equipment." And he's like, yeah, you can borrow my video. And Steve Lazarus, his childhood friend, came and worked on the project as well. And I remember we had it all set up, all the video equipment. I think I went and picked it up from the house. I used to live in the mansion in Harlow. And so we got it. And I got a call from Robbo, as he's known, the night before.
Okay.
And he was like, I've been up for 3 days. I don't think I can do this. I'm trying to do a Scottish accent. It's not working. He's like, I don't think I can do this. I said, Robbo, I've borrowed all the equipment. I'm good to go. Come on, man. It's going to really be, He goes, okay. So he turns up at the building where we used to be next day. And we're chatting away. And he said, look, I haven't got anything prepared. I said, look, I know you're playing pretty well. I'm a fan, I'll be in the video with you, and I'll ask you a bunch of questions, and we'll just kind of do it like that. He's like, okay. And as he's doing this, he's kind of screwing the top off this dagger, right? But like it was nothing.
A Coke.
Yeah, you know what I mean. It's like you're in there with the Taliban, and they're like building a sort of weapon of mass destruction. They're going, so how was your day today? Was it good?
Right.
And this, that, and the other. It's like it was nothing. Like it was.
I love it.
Like it was absolutely nothing.
It's always blown my mind how guys like that get so gigantic.
Yeah.
I don't understand how that fucking happens.
But I don't think they know.
With like a fucking attitude, and they just like end up in Thin Lizzy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And I don't think they know.
It's wild, dude.
It just kind of happens.
That shit's always blown my mind.
Yeah. He was joining Thin Lizzy when he was 17. He's probably like, I'll be wanting to be here next week, or who cares, So anyway, screwing the butt off this dagger, and I didn't even know what this was at the time. It's called bombing. You take a bit of the speed that was in the butt of this dagger.
Right.
I mean, that was always a fun to go, like, you put it in a dagger, so you get pulled over by the police, and you go, oh, it's just a dagger. Yeah. Like, there's no drugs in it. Like, they go, yeah, but it's still a fucking dagger.
Yeah,
I mean, do you know what I mean? That's like, I've got a really good way of keeping my cocaine. I put it in the bottom of my gun.
Yeah. Right.
They'll never find it.
Yeah, right.
They'll never find it. So anyway, it was called bombing apparently. I didn't know at the time. But he took some of the speed out, put it in a bit of tissue and swallowed it.
Okay.
So I thought, oh, fuck, this is, Anyway, so I went home, got some clothes, got some alcohol that I had in the house, brought it back to the studio, and we started doing the video. And it was going really well. It was going really, really well. It was exciting for me, big fan,
Of course.
Really exciting for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was doing the solo from Don't Believe a Word. We had a backing track there.
Fuck yeah, that's so cool.
And I was getting to a point where I was like thinking, we're kind of friends now after a couple of hours, as you do.
Sure.
And then he played one of these, the solo from Don't Believe a Word. And he said, was that okay? And I was sort of thinking, we're matey now, pals, Yeah. So I said, I think you got a better one in you. And he just looked... He just threw me this look that like could freeze sperm. Like when you got a girlfriend who thinks you're flirting with another girl and they give you that look and you think, oh fuck, I need to get the fuck out of here now. So it was sort of like that. I was like, oh no, actually now on second thoughts, we've had a rethink and a re-thing, and I think it was absolutely fine. So it went on, and it was great. We played the end
so
of
fucking cool.
Still in Love with You together, the harmonies. I'm out of my nut by now, and I'm not a robber.
I'm sure.
You got to understand, he's like, he can't be killed by conventional weapons. But the way the night ended, which was really fun, was my business partner at the time came in and said, was anybody wants to get something to eat? I'm going to get some Indian food. So he said, yeah, fine, I'll have madras, I'll have this, I'll have that.
Yeah.
And then Robbo goes, I'll have a fal. I don't know if you know what a fal is, but it's like the hottest curry you can get in England.
This guy's wild.
Right? But the thing is, Indians don't eat it.
It's that hot.
They make it for fucking stupid white people. That's what they make it for. They do. That's absolutely true. And anyway, so he went out and got this food. We got some more work done. Came back, and we're all like, well, you know, we want to see what's going on with this file sort of thing.
You want to watch him eat it to see if he
we want to see him eat it in front of us.
It, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And so the funny thing was like coming and yeah, I eat it later, you know, whatever.
I'll eat it later.
I get much fucking later. So anyway, so we go back in, we keep, you know, working on the thing, and so we get to the end of it. I think Still in Love with You thing was like the last thing that we did. So we get to the end of it, and I said, right, I'll call you a taxi, right? No Ubers at that time, just
of course.
Local Kilo Cars, a local firm.
Right.
So we called this local firm, and I'm waiting down. There's no GPS or anything. You just have to wait for the guy to turn up.
Right.
So I go down to the studio car park, and I'm waiting for the car so I can go, hey, you know, unbeknownst to me, he's this out of his nut now. He's decided to start eating his file, right? which is still on the table, right, from earlier, from where it was. So
now it's gelled. It's even hotter, probably.
So I don't even know. All I know is I'm down in the car park waiting for the car, and all I remember is just hearing the door, which is like up a flight of stairs, hearing the door open. There's Robbo with this plate in his hand. He's crying, his tears.
Why the fuck did you order that?
Running because he's Scottish and he's hard. You know, he's a tough guy.
Right.
He's something. I knew that. I'm like, fuck's sake, you know, whatever. So anyway, he opens the door, tears running down his eyes. He's got this phone in his hands, and all I remember is he just goes, "Have you got a bin?"
And then he bailed.
And then he bailed. We put him in a taxi.
I love that so much.
And then he bailed.
Is he still alive?
I don't know. I mean, the funny part about it was, I don't want to go sort of totally into this, but I actually got him, a friend of mine who was working for Warner Brothers at the time for IMP from the print side, Ron. I can't think of his second name now. Ron, great guy. I went to him and said, look, you know, he's not in the best of places, but he can still play really good.
Right.
I can write a blues album for him. Still Got the Blues had been big at the time. And we were going to call it Still in Love with the Blues.
That's cool.
And I wrote this title song. Every day that I lose, boom, and every fight that I choose. Right. It was a typical 12-bar thing, but 12/8 thing, and everything. And then the punchline was, but everything that happens, I'm still in love with the blues. Then they kind of like, you know.
Okay.
I thought, and I sold it to this guy. He's like, I will get you the money for this. Mm-hmm. Like, we'll do it. And he said, but you got to be in charge of the projects, and you got to write the songs and everything, because basically we just get him into play.
Right.
And I was happy to give him half of all the writing and everything, because I was such a big fan. And then what happened? Well, it was a funny old story, but he found out who was giving us the deal, and he went basically behind my back to try and do it himself, and it all fell apart, which was a real shame. And at that time, Ron said, look, you know, if you're not, because he knew from Total Accuracy and Nick Library, or Total Accuracy at the time, he knew how reliable I was in terms of delivering.
Sure.
He knew that I would deliver this, by hook or by crook, I would deliver this project. Sure. So it never ended up happening, unfortunately, which is a real shame, because I was like a big fan. And,
of course, yeah.
But it was a great experience. And I did see him a few times after, and he's a good guy. I like him.
That's cool.
And everything. So that's the Finn Lizzy story.
It. Why do you think that I can't say didn't break because they're gigantic, but didn't become like a Zeppelin or like a Deep Purple level? Because to me, their songs are just as good, if not better, personally.
Yeah. Like I say...
What do you think they had that didn't get them to that? Because you'd agree with that, right?
Oh,
They didn't become
100%.
They didn't become like a Zeppelin, and to me,
No.
it's like they have so many fucking good songs.
Yeah, I think they were just fraught with problems.
Yeah.
If you go back to the history, like say one for example, they're just about to do like apparently in the Bad Reputation album,
Yeah.
Robbo by his own admission, he'd go in and play a solo. He'd come out of the control room, go and sit back and start drinking. They go, "Do you want to hear it?" He'd go, "No." You know,
Maybe that's what made them so organic, though.
yeah, no, but quite possibly. And then I think there was another incident where he was about to go on tour, but he cut his own hand accidentally because he was so drunk, and then he couldn't go on the tour.
Who was this? Phil?
No, Brian Robertson.
Oh, okay.
Cut his hand, and then he couldn't go on the tour because of that. I think he was always fighting all the time.
Okay.
There was that, and I think normally.
Yeah, those bands lived so fucking hard back then, dude.
Yeah.
Those bands just lived so hard back then.
But for me, the bands that really did well were the ones that stayed together.
Yeah.
Van Halen, U2, Led Zeppelin. They never really changed members. There obviously has been times with people like
ZZ Top.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Incredible.
Exactly.
How long those three guys were a band.
Exactly, and I think
till the end, literally.
Yeah, and so I think that was the problem with Thin Lizzy. I think they were absolutely fraught with problems, one way or the other. I mean, Phil, I love Phil Lynott. I absolutely love him to death. I could have met him once. It was a real shame. I was actually playing with a guy called Brian Paul. Do you remember? He had a big hit called Twist and Shout. And Do You Love Me? Do you love me? Do you love me? So I played in his band.
Oh, I love that. I never knew that about you. I've known you for years. I never knew that.
Yeah. There's a lot of things. I mean, I auditioned for The Clash. A lot of people, that's not something I've ever spoken about. I got down to the last 2 out of 700.
Fuck,
and I actually played with the band.
That's so fun.
We'll have to save that for a story for another time, but it was brilliant. I absolutely loved The Clash. I was really weird for me because I always loved like the Deep Purple and the, and the Van Halens and all that, but I also love punk as well.
Sure.
So it was a bit of a weird thing for me. But I think, the thing with Thin Lizzy, they were just fraught with problems.
That totally makes sense, actually. Totally makes sense.
It just seemed that they just couldn't
coming and going.
Yeah, and I think
that always steers away fans a little bit.
I think it does.
When
I think it does.
Come and go, because then you can't get glued to those guys.
Yeah.
Like Pantera again, those 4 guys. Those were the 4 guys. It was only those 4 guys.
Yeah.
And
that's it.
You glued to those characters, I guess you could say.
I think you feel like you're in their gang as well. It's like when you
do.
feel you're part of their gang, you don't want that gang to change.
Nope. I can't tell you how much confidence and just like I felt like I was a Pantera fan in high school.
You feel like you're part of the gang.
Thing. Yeah.
And it's like, and then it's like, I used to have a gang over a local park in England. I mean, it's like people would come along and join, but it would take a long time.
Yeah.
You couldn't just turn up one day.
Rock and roll so special is like the gang mentality of like.
Yeah. It's almost a little bit like boxing or martial arts. It's like when you're in a training camp.
Yeah.
You're not just going to be like, hey, well, we'll see you next week. We bring something. You've stuck. That's why certain people in the UFC they won't fight each other.
Really?
Because they're out of the same.
Wow. Yeah, Pantera was just always my band.
Yeah, I had 2 friends of mine in Tenerife. One called Russian Alex, and the other one, oh God, I'm embarrassed. I can't remember his name anyway. They all trained together. They're good mates. They would never fight each other.
I love that.
Even though on the island it would have been a huge draw.
Huge deal. Yeah.
Because they were the 2 best guys.
Right.
But that was just never going to happen.
That's
you know
cool.
what I mean? So I think in the Thin Lizzy case, it was really just a really tricky situation. They just seemed to be fraught with problems the whole time. As a kid, you never understand that.
Right.
And you never know about
don't.
that.
I was just thinking that right now when you were saying that.
Yeah. You
don't, now that you've been in the business for a while, or I have, whatever, you see these kind of things, and it makes these bands even more special.
Yeah.
You realize how fucking special it is that they were a thing at all.
Yeah.
Let alone stay together or wrote those records or wrote those songs.
Yeah.
It's a really crazy thing.
And I think it also demonstrates why a lot of times they don't stay together that long.
Yeah. It's hard.
I mean, can you imagine the pressure?
Yeah.
Because I know even in a small way from the Total Accuracy Lick Library thing, is like as soon as you get any success, they call it, a guy does all the audio for Lick Library and does all my stuff, Martin Hales. He always used to say, the thing in the business is divide and conquer. Mm-hmm. That's all they want to do. It's like, say, for example, you're in a band and you're great buddies with Dario, is it?
Dario.
So you're great buddies with, they don't like that.
That's the old mentality. I feel like I was just talking to my dad about this because he was in like the Sunset Strip scene. He was in a band called Nasty Habit. Um, that mentality of like removing a guy's amp tube before he plays, or that's like not a thing anymore.
No. I'm not talking about that.
Oh, okay.
No. What I'm talking about, divide and conquer. It's like if you're good buds and you trust each other, and you really.
Yes.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes,
Because they go,
yes.
well, we don't like this because these two guys can go into the hotel room and say, well, what do you think about that? And go, oh, I don't agree.
Yeah,
oh, no, I don't
with that,
agree.
for sure.
They don't want that.
Yeah.
They want to be able to pull you or him aside.
Yeah.
And say, look, this guy said this about you, or
that's true.
That's a crazy crap. You know what I mean? And that gets worse because at the end of the day, I mean, there was a thing with Eric Clapton where somebody come up to him, I think it was once, and he was like, "You're an a-hole because you're supposed to do this charity thing," and he's like, "What?" He didn't even know. And apparently, his manager, anything that didn't favour his manager, his manager just turned it down.
Wow. Yeah, that's terrible.
You see what I mean? But he didn't know anything about it.
Right.
Because they basically just pull those guys, divide and conquer.
Yeah, right.
Because he's thinking, well, if he's getting nothing, I'm getting 20%. 20% of nothing
is
nothing. So I'm not doing it.
Right.
Not realising, most people are not in for the long haul, are they? Not realising that actually, doing these things.
Right.
Like for me, when I get up in the morning, my first question to myself is, how can I serve the world?
Right.
Like, I think these podcasts, for example, is a great way. People are going to get great information out of it.
Right.
It might inspire them to start their own podcast. Sure. That's what I think about.
Right.
But you find that most managers don't want that.
That's the main reason I play guitar, man, is I love inspiring kids. Like, if a kid wants to pick or something, that is the coolest feeling ever.
Yeah.
So, like, the shortening autographs thing, I do not understand that mentality with musicians.
Yeah.
It's the coolest thing ever to inspire somebody.
I think a lot of people just don't think long term.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, look, I'm not saying when I die there's going to be any pearly gates or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But, if there is, God's got a good case to say, well, you kind of fucked that up, Stuart, and this and the other. But I know he's also going to say, yeah, but you actually did some pretty cool things as well.
Right.
Sure. And that's the thing that will get you past. So you go, well, it's a demerit, but on you go.
Right.
All right, mate. Well, listen, it's been an absolutely fantastic time. Definitely going to have you on again.
Thanks for having me.
And yeah, absolutely. And I know you're going to. I want to check out your 800s when they show up.
Can't wait, man.
It's going to be wonderful.
Yep.
Thanks, man. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks so much.
We'll speak very soon.
Yeah.
So that should fade to black now. Not in the stream.